Last week, I talked about why the Vikings sucked in 2020, and one of their big reasons was because they had such a poor free agency period. So today, we're going to talk about how the Vikings cannot fall into the same trap that they did last year, and how we can have a successful free agency period in 2021, how the Vikings can win free agency. Let's start off with looking at the current Vikings needs. So on offense, it's really just one big one and then one kind of a smaller one. And the big one is obviously offensive guard. And some of these other fans go, oh, offensive tackle, offensive tackle. But our tackles are fine. As a matter of fact, we even have a tackle playing guard. So yeah, tackle's fine. What we need is a dedicated offensive guard, and that would solidify the offensive line quite a bit. And then next is a wide receiver 3, kind of a depth wide receiver. BC Johnson is fine, but definitely replaceable, and more talent there would be better. But obviously, there we have it for offense. Everything else is pretty solid. Defense is a little bit of a different story. So let's start up front with defensive tackle, specifically the 3 technique. Hopefully, Michael Pierce is able to play this year. But we need that pass rushing defensive tackle alongside him. Shamar Stephen is not it. He's horrible. So let's replace him and get basically anyone there instead. Next, edge rusher. Again, presuming Danielle Hunter will be back and we can get him locked up on the big contract that he wants, that we still need the defensive end on the other side. DJ Wanham's probably good enough to be that guy if Hunter is the starter on the opposite side, but more depth behind him would be needed. So again, more depth at the defensive end position. And then lastly, the one that's the most glaring from the outside looking in is cornerback, and I think specifically a veteran. This isn't one where I think we would want to draft another cornerback early and throw another young guy in the mix. A veteran would be a huge help to the cornerback room and really move the defense moving forward. But how are we going to fill all these positions when we don't have any money? We're currently projected to have negative $6 million cap space, so we definitely need to make some money before, and obviously that's subject to change a little bit due to not knowing the exact number of the cap heading into 2021. But let's see how we can make some money based on what we know with the salary cap right now. So let's start off with the easy adjustments to the roster, and that is the first and easiest one for me is cutting Shamar Stephen. He sucks. Pretty easy. Save $4 million. Stupid extension in the first place. Maybe a small chance that they would cut him and then re-sign him as a veteran minimum. That might not even affect the salary cap. That wouldn't be too bad. But definitely are going to save the $4 million one way or the other. Next is cutting Kyle Rudolph. As much as we all love Rudolph, he was maybe not even the best tight end on the team anymore. We drafted Irv Smith. We needed him to play. Another just stupid extension from last year that we needed to correct. I'd rather not take the dead cap money, but saving $5 million is worth it. He is good enough where maybe you could find a trade partner that would give you a little something for Rudolph, but most likely would just have to be cut. And then the last easy choice is extending Harrison Smith. I know Harrison is getting up there in age, maybe losing maybe a half a step, not a whole step slower yet, but definitely we'll be getting there pretty soon. But despite his cap number being so high, he's not cut eligible in my opinion. He's still too valuable on our team. We have such a young defense that keeping that elite veteran is so much needed. He can be kind of the captain out there on the field. So I think a nice little 3-year extension, about $24 million, will free up about $2 million of cap space, and that is pretty good. So I think those were the easy choices to make to save up some money, but we still have some money that we need to save. So let's move up to the offensive line and talk about Riley Reiff. So this one is very tough because our offensive line is not good, but Riley Reiff is coming off his best season with the Vikings, borderline a Pro Bowl left tackle last year, and it'd be foolish to replace, right? But the Vikings just drafted Cleveland, and despite Cleveland not looking great last year, when he drafted an offensive tackle, I'd rather him play offensive tackle. So it just feels like it's written in the stars that the Vikings are going to cut Riley Reiff. move Cleveland to tackle. I'm not sure if he would be at left tackle or if they would slide O'Neal over there. Whatever the case would happen, I'm sure they would, try to do their best at least to make the right decision, but who knows. But yeah, Riley Reef is gone, and let's get our offensive tackle to play offensive tackle, and let's get a offensive guard to play offensive guard. There's a little bit of a different skill set, so I think that matters to get the players in the right position. Some have that little bit more versatility. I know Reef's played guard in the past. Maybe he'd be willing to take a pay cut and slide in, but I think he'd rather get more money elsewhere playing tackle. And then one last thing. This one I saved for last because it's not a very big deal at all. Just kind of a little splash, and they're just saving a little bit of more money. Probably won't even make any headlines if it happens. You'd probably go throughout the whole offseason without even knowing that it did happen. And that is just trading Kirk Cousins. Nothing big deal. The way I see this going through, and I kind of compared the trade value that the Lions got with Matt Stafford, where they got Jared Goff, who's like a starting caliber, not great quarterback, but starting caliber quarterback, and then 2 first-round picks. They were all in the following years, so maybe not quite as valuable, but still first-round picks. And then a third-round pick that they're getting this year, which is quite the haul. And I think as of right now, Kirk Cousins and Matt Stafford have about the same value for trade, so you'd assume something similar for Cousins. So the way I see this going down, and this is a 3-way trade between the Vikings, the 49ers, and the Patriots. So the Vikings are sending Kirk Cousins over to the 49ers. The 49ers are sending their quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo to the Patriots, and then the Vikings receive the 49ers first-round pick, that's 12th overall, their second-round pick, that's 44th overall, and then the Patriots second-round pick, that's 47th overall. All of this year, all packaged, we can regroup them right away, bundle them together, maybe move up to the draft, get a guy like Zach Wilson. I would love that. They could go all in on like Deshaun Watson. I wouldn't like that as much because we just saved money trading Cousins. Now we're going to spend more money with Watson than not be able to sign anybody else. Not the biggest fan of that, but maybe they can make that work. But I think the money that you're saving there and the picks that you get in return, especially if you're confident that there's a quarterback in the draft class that you like right away, I think that would work out very well for the team, especially long term, but maybe even right away as soon as 2021. So because of all those moves, the Vikings currently would have $51 million cap space available. So let's start off with re-signing our guys. This was one of my favorite off-season segments I used to do. Vikings free agents, keep them or let them go. But this year, the Vikings just have so few that I see us re-signing that I didn't see that segment needing to come back this year. So I'll kind of squeeze it in here because it is kind of sad, but also just goes to show how many kind of useless players that we had last year. So I see kind of 3 free agents I'd want the Vikings to sign. So let's start off with Eric Wilson, who was basically the Vikings starting a linebacker last year. Played good in the pass game, poor in the run game, but was probably good enough to at least be on the team as a competition at linebacker. And it'll just be a nice little cheap, about $3 million deal. Re-signing Rashad Hill. This one is actually pretty big, especially if we do cut Riley Reef. We need Rashad Hill on the team. Maybe $1 million is a little bit short, but that's about what he's making this year. So with the salary cap situation, I think it's something similar to that. Hill is super valuable because he gives us plus backup play at all 4 offensive line positions, maybe 5. I'm not sure if he can play center or not, but I know he can play guard and tackle. And he can play at a pretty solid level. You don't want him to start for a long period of time. But if a little injury happens during a game, he can go in there and you don't see a big drop-off. So I think he's very valuable for that money amount. And then Anthony Harris would be very cool to sign back. Sports Track gave him a market value of $14 million a year. So if it's anywhere close to that, that seems high to me. But if it's anywhere close to that, there's just no way the Vikings are going to do that. Unfortunately, Anthony Harris will be gone. But the Vikings do re-sign Eric Wilson and Rashad Hill, letting all the other current Vikings free agents walk. So now, all of a sudden, let's dive into this big old frenzy of all these other free agents. This is the fun part where we get to dive into these other guys. So now we have a huge gaping hole at quarterback. I don't see us going after a veteran that will cost a lot. Like I said, kind of like my point against Deshaun Watson. So I don't think we're offering $40 million a year on Dak Prescott. And then there's more high risk uh, type quarterbacks like Cam Newton that could be an interesting option as well, but I think he's too much of a turnover quarterback that's too inconsistent. So I think the Vikings would go with a little bit more of the boring option here, be a good bridge quarterback. Might not even start the entire season, but I could probably see winning the camp battle, especially with who knows what camp will be like in 2021. And that guy was going to be the Red Pistol himself, Andy Dalton. Coming to Minnesota, basically throughout his career has been a poor man's Kirk Cousins, anyways. So about $6.8 million, like a 1 year deal, I think would be great value to get the guy in here, to provide competition to the rookie quarterback, and you would need plus depth behind him. The one thing that you do lose with Kirk Cousins is that elite durability. So you'd want a better backup quarterback than Sean Mannion, anyways. So Andy Dalton coming here at an expensive backup role, but at that fringe starter level that he is, I think it's worth it for at least a year. And then since we're bringing in Andy Dalton, might as well bring AJ Green to be wide receiver 3. Now, I know AJ Green's been through injuries the last couple of years and is getting a little bit up there in age, but this is a very low risk, high reward type of a prospect. And the great part about being with the Vikings, who cares about his speed? He can be that underneath receiver, that big body threat. He can replace those Kyle Rudolph reps in the red zone, be that big body on the outside, and I think we'd get by just fine. We have Justin Jefferson, we have Adam Thielen to take the top off, so he can be underneath, be that big body receiver, and with that old chemistry he has with Andy Dalton, I think that'd be a fantastic pickup. I think it's a nice $6 million prove it deal. And if he balls out, he'd probably just walk off after the year, and we would get a nice compensatory pick for 2022. So I think that works out for everyone. So I think that'd be a terrific pick. And let's stick with another wide receiver right away. But this is less of a wide receiver and more of a special teams ace. I think you guys already know where I'm going with this. The Vikings bring back Flash. Cordero Patterson is back in the building. Nice $3 million deal. Maybe this one's more than just a 1 year type of deal, like 2 or 3 years maybe. But bringing Cordero Patterson back is great for multiple reasons. First and foremost, he gives us that elite talent on special teams as a kick returner and also a gunner. And then the nice thing, 53-man roster wise, is he can be an emergency running back and wide receiver in one. So the Vikings 53-man roster could very easily be Dalvin Cook, Alexander Madison, and CJ Ham, and then that's it. And then Patterson's kind of that bubble guy that can be that emergency back if there's an injury that happens. And same thing with wide receivers. We can just go through 53-man roster with just the 4 main wide receivers. So Patterson can be simultaneously wide receiver 5 and running back 3, and then most of you just be playing special teams. I think that would provide terrific value for the team, and would just help out a lot of things. And then there's one more thing we need on offense. We cut Reef because we wanted a guard to play guards. Let's just get the best free agency guard while we're at it. Brandon Sheriff is coming into town. $13 million multi-year deal. Solidify the interior of the offensive line is so extremely important. Getting a guy that can handle the bull rush of these defensive tackles. I love my fleet-footed offensive tackles. I love Garrett Bradbury being able to stretch and get pull and get safeties 20 yards down the field. That's super cool. But let's get a guy that can manhandle these 300-pound defensive tackles and get us this push when we need it, and isn't going to get bull rushed into our quarterback's lap on these little 3-step drops. I'm not going to see that anymore. So we're going to spend money, get us a guard to play guard instead of a tackle that's not meant to play guard playing guard. Is that complicated? I don't think it is. All right. So there we have it. Those were our offensive changes. Much different. Dalton for Cousins, AJ Green coming in wide receiver 3, Patterson coming in as a backup receiver / running back, and Sheriff being our long-term guard of the future. I think that's great in offense. So let's move on to defense, where we have some bigger options too. So Let's look at some of these veteran free agent corner options. And for me, you could go with either one of these guys. There's a couple other options too that I wouldn't hate, but I've kind of narrowed it down to three. Give me your thoughts in the comment section down below which one of these you would rather the most. But I'll break them down from my least favorite to most favorite. So third, bringing back Xavier Rhodes. Kind of had a nice renaissance year with the Colts where he looked a lot better than he did last year with the Vikings. So maybe he could come back. He knows the defense well and could be a solid cornerback 3 on the Vikings. Sure, that'd be fine. Two, the most knowledgeable cornerback probably in the league, like most knowledgeable maybe all time, maybe. Richard Sherman would be huge. Talk about filling in that Terrence Newman role to a T. That super old veteran corner. The only thing is the same downside that you had with Terrence Newman is if teams can match up a speedster on Richard Sherman, he doesn't have the speed to keep up with them, and that's just a bomb waiting to happen. And knowing the Vikings locked that happen at the worst of times. So despite him giving us the best consistent play, that part scares me just enough for that I edge out my favorite veteran or corner that the Vikings bring in, and that is Patrick Peterson. I know he's been banged up the last couple of years, but I see him as kind of similar to Xavier Rhodes, where a change of scenery could just be crazy good for him. And the good thing about him, kind of like the same point I made with AJ Green, is he wouldn't have to be the best corner on the team. If he is, fantastic. We could use it. We could use that true ace. But I think Dantzler's good enough to be matched up on the best corners. Gladney's probably good enough to be cornerback too, but on nickel situations, Patrick Peterson on the outside, Gladney in the slot, I think that would be fine. And then Mike Hughes can jump in there if he can ever stay healthy, and that'd be a solid cornerback group heading into 2021, especially if Peterson can get anywhere close to his best years, and that'd be terrific. Sports Track gave him like a $10 million market value, which seemed absurdly high. If it's that high, yeah, maybe if you get a little bit cheaper as Sherman, go for it. But I mark him down as like a $7 million contract. Probably just another 1 or 2 year deal. Nothing long term because obviously you're a veteran. You don't really know what you're getting out of him. But let's get someone where we probably do know what we're getting out of him. Something that will help all of our defensive backs. And that is bringing defensive tackle Shelby Harris from the Denver Broncos, one of the most underrated defensive tackles in the league. And I think this is a long-term $7 million multi-year deal. And he's going to give us the best pass rushing defensive tackle that we've had since Sheldon Richardson. He's probably even better than him. I think if Michael Pierce is able to play this year, that would give the Vikings such a good defensive tackle tandem, so much better than the last year. And talk about getting better on both the interior and defensive line all within 12 months. I think that'd be so nice. And I think that would be our last major free agent signing. I'm not really going to count some of these like little minor depth ones that don't affect the cap a whole lot. After all that, we still left with $4.2 million cap space, so we can still sign the backup that we need. Dan Bailey could still get cut, but I don't think that would happen until training camp when we know for sure the young guy that we bring in is better than Dan Bailey. Britton Colquitt, maybe the same deal. So there's still some money to get made to fix some things around, some extensions here and there. But with all that we just did, the needs that we still have is we still need another guard. The thing with cutting one alignment and adding one is you still have the same amount of needs that you had earlier. So we still need a guard to come in right away. I think going in the draft would be a perfect spot to find that. And then a long-term wide receiver 3 would be really cool. This one could wait till next year. If AJ Green looks anywhere close to decent, I think having Thielen, Jefferson, Green, and BC Johnson as a wide receiver tandem is pretty damn good, especially when the Vikings don't do many 3 or 4 wide sets very often anyways. So I think that's fine if we wait, but I think picking up a middle round wide receiver, hope for the best, it would be a good decision in the draft too. And obviously, the biggest one's again a franchise quarterback. Like I said, my pick would be Zach Wilson. If, let's say, the Jets are willing to trade back and the Vikings is given a couple first round picks, maybe a second, and trade to that second overall pick and pick up Zach Wilson, that would be terrific, stupendous, fantastic, would help out the team quite a bit. And you might even have a better quarterback situation in 2021 than you did with a Cousins in the prime of his career. If he can give us something like a Justin Herbert type year, I mean this is a Super Bowl contending team without a doubt. But even if we do sit there in the back in the middle of the draft and get a guy like Mac Jones, I wouldn't hate that either. Cause I think that guy gets a little bit too much crap thrown his way because of noodle arm type stuff. But I think he's probably the most pro ready quarterback too. So he wouldn't be too bad. He'd be boring, but he'd be okay too. And on defense, we still need edge depth. Obviously, the one every Vikings fan and their mother wants is Everson Griffin coming back. I think that's very likely. And then Stephen Weatherly would be another solid option as another defensive end depth. Then losing Anthony Harris, we have a huge, ginormous gaping hole at safety. We need one to start right away. And then we also need depth behind them too. So this was definitely going into the draft for this. We need that long-term safety that's going to end up being our best safety with Harrison Smith getting up there in age. And if we can get it right, where this new kid gets to his best years while Harrison Smith still has some elite years left in him, that would give the Vikings once again the best safety tandem in the league. Then drafting a backup too. I would love to get that big nickel Jaron Kearse type safety would be fantastic as well. And then more corner depth. I don't want to see Vikings corners that I've never seen ever before in my life playing cornerback for them. The Vikings are basically getting people straight off Minneapolis onto the field to play corner last year. Let's get people that actually played some decent reps in college, or more other veterans to play corner on the team. That would be good. But yeah, there we have it. That's how we make the Vikings the winners in free agency. Give me your thoughts in the comment section down below. I doubt any of you will be talking about the Kirk Cousins trade because it's so minor and barely even affects the team. But give me your thoughts in the comments. We'll see you guys in the next JLZ Vikings video. Next week, we're going to turn our attention to the draft. See you guys then.